thing on?
I think so. I think we are. I think we're back and ready to go. Sorry about that, you guys. Thanks everybody for joining us again today for another weekly edition of the Tattoo Weekly with myself, Jake Meeks, and Gabe Ripley. We'll do a short introductions in just a minute, but before we get started, why don't you guys let us know that all of these streams are working? We welcome positive reviews, of course, and all the places that you may be watching, whether it's Facebook, reinventingthetattoo.com, the Fireside YouTube, TattooNow, or Reinventing the Tattoo. So we're all over the place, and we'd love to hear where you're beaming in from. So to get started, I'm Lauren from Reinventing the Tattoo and Raw Pigments. I'm excited to be talking with Chris Harrison from That Tattoo Show and coming up at mid past the hour. And yeah, Jake, how you doing today? Gabe, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Had a good weekend. Hope you guys did.
Yeah, fantastic. Except for COVID-y, sickness-y stuff, I suppose. My daughter finally got it.
Is she okay?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Or so far, so goodish.
Yeah. It seems like we're all gonna get it at some point. I forget if I was telling you guys or what, but my last 3 appointments have rescheduled either due to exposure or having the virus. So. Yeah.
The good news is if everybody's, depending on how much protection you've got, right, it's a lot of sniffles and a lot more of the body fighting off the infection than the infection getting in and fucking up your, neurology or fucking blood system.
Yeah. Lauren, what about you? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. Just a little bit cold here. I was telling Jake this morning that it felt like 24 below zero. So, yeah, not too much happening. A lot of time, if we do go outside, is short-lived, covered in layers. Yeah. But otherwise, today's a busy day for me, particularly with Raw Pigments. We get to talk to a lot of artists about what's going on around the world, and it's going to be a beautiful Monday, I guess.
All right. So wait, so we're supposed to be stay tuned. We're going to be talking with Chris from That Tattoo Show about the inks. So while we're running the intro, share this around with anybody that you know that might be interested in learning about inks and what's going on in Europe from a tattooer that's right over there. And he's pretty dialed in with his YouTube show.
Yeah, and it's nice to have a perspective from artists around the world because we can talk about it, and it's hard to know exactly what's going on until you hear it from those that are living in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to meet him and excited to get his perspective on it. Want to roll that intro?
Sure, just 1 second.
Right. One Mississippi. Hello, everybody, says Shahab, wishing her a speedy recovery. I think.
Oh, okay, awesome.
It is working.
All right.
Where are you all beaming in from? Let us know in the chat room. Share it around.
Yeah, share it around. I am beaming in from Wisconsin, everybody. Like I said, it's nice and chilly here.
All right, we should be doing that. I'm East Hampton, Massachusetts.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Here we go.
All right. All right. We can't hear you, Lauren.
We will be updating that intro someday in the future. You'll know when we go from. We'll be crossing a threshold when we do.
Right.
You asked what's new in the world of us. So last week with Reinventing the Tattoo, we had some fun stuff happening on different shows, right, Gabe? Throughout the week, we had Monday starting strong with the drawing group and exercises in the evening for the Canon class, as well as Ricardo had some fun on Tuesday, and then Chuck Deasy and Todd were on the Tattoo Collecting podcast on Thursday. So that was a lot of different stuff happening on all across.
It's pretty much going 5 days a week now. I've been working on the Reinventing Live event that's happening at Red Tree and True Tubes, that warehouse there. It's pretty awesome. People are signing up, which is great. They're also signing up virtually, which is awesome. And it's a lot of cool people there. A couple of people beaming in that, not last minute. Well, it is all last minute, but yeah, anyways, that's what I've been working on. It's a lot of fun catching up with everybody. And then I'm like, holy shit, this is coming up in like fucking 3 weeks, 4 weeks now.
Where do people go to see what the schedule of events and all that stuff?
Reinventingthetatattoo.com/live.
Okay.
Whenever everybody else can talk, and then maybe I'll do a quick little demo before. I'll do a demo after, because we have 4 minutes before our guest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that basically you can find it on the Reinventing websites, but what you can expect is 2 days of education-based seminars, kind of like a hybrid version where if you can't make it, we're going to be beaming out different things and seminars as well. Yeah, so we'll have all sorts of podcasters, tattooers, machine builders. It'll be hosted by Derb, so you can, of course, and Gabe, you can always expect something that's next level. I'm really looking forward to seeing True Tattoo Supply, which is a place I've never been yet, but apparently the studio overlooks the warehouse, and it's a really cool setup that they have going on.
Yeah, Doug's got a real sweet spot there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go. Yeah, lots of Haley Adams. That's nice. So she's coming out in person?
She's beaming in.
Beaming in. Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to get her to beam into the recruiting. So we have a discussion panel on recruiting.
Mhm.
That'll be a bunch of tattoo shop owners who discuss amongst themselves, and then we'll end it out with like maybe 1 to 3 Shark Tank style interviews. So all the business owners get to interview potential tattooers.
Yeah.
And she would be awesome for that, but that would be way too early. So she's definitely not an early riser. But
yeah,
very nice tattoo
also,
artist. Conan's doing, like, if there's tattooers who are interested in balancing their time and organization skills, Conan is awesome at it. I remember 5 years ago, I was like, Conan's like, dude, I got all these computer systems set up. I got everything automated myself. And I was like, dude, I've got like the best support team in the world that takes care of everything for tattooers using computers. Flash forward now, I'm like, okay, Conan, teach everybody how to do their own shit virtually. Anyways, he's got a really awesome seminar on the organized tattooer, so that you can balance your life and business and don't go crazy. Nick Mitchell's coming out. Bob Tyrell's doing a tattooing a skull from start to last call. I don't know if that's the official title, but that's what I came up with until we come up with something better.
I like it.
And again, we could beam in all this stuff too, right? So there's people from Italy that already bought stage tickets, and so Sunday we got a tattoo machine panel with Tony Urbanic leading it up. Nick Baxter is going to beam in from Austin, Texas, to do an hour of his holistic seminar focused on advanced layering techniques. So tattooers who sign up for the seminar, it's $100, can send him pictures of their tattoos in progress, and he could talk about what he would do with the next layer. Reinventing the Tattoo streaming panel. Jesse Smith, Guy's going to be beaming in. So Guy, of course, is beaming in both nights to lead discussion panels with the day's presenters, and to kind of dive in a little bit deeper into each of their topics. And as you know, Guy's awesome. He's very thoughtful, and sometimes I've seen him do interviews with people who do their seminars, and the interview is like it's an extra 5 to 10% or whatever. I don't know. It's fun to see him pick out things from people. He never ceases to amaze me. And then we're closing it up with an open house tour of Red Tree / True Tubes. We'll take it around. And I think I've promised it. I don't know if you catch the Easter eggs, there's a chance to win stuff. So as we move the camera around, we'll be giving away some stuff. And
nice.
Lauren's coming out with a bunch of sample packs. We're going to put together the sample packs of stuff.
Those are going to be really cool. They'll be loaded with stuff. We've got Shine cartridges, a D-Lize Pro, raw pigments. I'm really looking forward to bringing those down. And I will be driving, so I can, actually travel with stuff this time and actually bring the gear. Be nice.
Yeah.
So there we go. And that's what I've been working on. I'll probably be working on that for the next 3 weeks. I also have, TattooNow. And I mean, the fun part is I get to demo all of the new techie stuff with this event. So now all the feeds have like people's email or their first names in them. And anyways, it's a lot of fun. Columbus,
that'll be
Ohio,
exciting.
in person. Limited tickets in person, reinventingthetattoo.com/live. And we have a couple sponsors that are hopping on. So we'll be blasting them pretty soon too.
Yeah, that's exciting. I wish I could make it out. Columbus is such a fun town. I'll be there for Hell City, Columbus, and I think it's in May this year. Is that right? And hopefully we'll be moved up with each other. We gotta try to pull some strings with Derb and see if we can get a whole podcast corner going. In fact, I haven't even talked about podcasting there, but I assume if you guys are going to be there, that I'll bring all my gear, and I will. I'm scheduled to tattoo a couple of days, but I'll definitely block out a day for podcasting or some type of fun, tattoo education stuff, since we're all going to be hanging out there.
Yeah, I'll be catching up. I mean, obviously, I'll be catching up with Derb in a couple of weeks to see what we're all doing. And
perfect.
Crazy times.
Yeah. All right. So what's the story with our guest? Is he already waiting?
He's in the waiting room,
Nice.
anticipating. Perfect. He is in a different time zone, of course. So we have Chris Harrison today. Him and Paul Talbot run That Tattoo Show, where they have all sorts of stuff going on here, so it's a great resource to check out. But one of the things about Chris, if you follow, he is all about finding out what's going on in the ink with the REACH regulations. So I thought he'd be a great resource, because I don't always have all of my information exactly correct from the perspective of the artist, whereas I'm usually looking from a manufacturing standpoint in terms of what's happening with regulation. So I decided to hit up Chris, see what he knows, and he's got all sorts of stuff to share with us today. Gabe and I spoke this morning also about bringing him on again to delve a little bit deeper, because there's quite a bit. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited.
All right, we'll bring him in. We have him in the waiting room now. While Chris is connecting, the first time that I actually met him was on one of our worldwide conference Zooms, which we did last year on Reinventing. Lots of artists were kind of beaming in, more along the lines of COVID, I believe, but it kind of spiraled from there. So you can catch that in the Reinventing channel. Maybe we could link in the description below.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. And then maybe just rotate this way.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but there we go.
There we go. In honor of having the Brit on, I'm going to fill up my tea. This is my show's tea.
So Chris, welcome.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. How is everyone?
Cheers.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I wish we could be as tight as your show. I don't know if you're doing the editing or Paul's doing the editing, but between the two years and the editing, it's fucking great. But
thank you.
Live and slow.
Yeah, do you know what? I think if we do it live, we probably end up swearing a lot more and getting ourselves in a lot more trouble with what we say. So we have to.
I just lost some advertisers. So speaking of swearing.
We have to film it and edit it.
Yeah.
But no, it's I think.
How long have you been doing the show for? It seems like it's I mean, you've been doing various projects, but in this incarnation, how long has the show been going?
I think it's nearly 2 years now. Yeah, awesome. Someone messaged me last night. They thought we started in 2018, and I was like, no, that can't be right. But his iPhone had saved the photograph as 2018. For some reason, but when I checked, it was I think it was like the first lockdown is when we started.
Okay.
So it started off with basically me and Paul just having a drink, having a chat on FaceTime, and then we just thought, I like making videos, you like making videos. Why don't we just start a YouTube channel? And that's how it started.
Real quick, Taisha in one of the chat rooms is a first-time watcher, and do you take questions? To which I answered yes, but then I figured I could probably just let everybody know.
Yeah.
We can't promise the answers will be awesome, but they might be interesting.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, Chris, I was just speaking about the first time that we did meet you, and that was with Paul on the worldwide, conference call that we did on Reinventing. And then it kind of just spiraled from there because you had information and perspectives that I have not heard or thought of before. So I keep in touch with you regularly. It's been awesome. But the topic for today that we want to kind of brushed the surface on, I could say, is what is going on with the new REACH regulations in Europe?
A lot of people don't really know, because there's so much, well, there's not enough information out there that's kind of readily available for people to see. But basically, you're aware what's happened is they've introduced the REACH regulations as of January the 4th, which affects Europe. And I found out recently, like, I thought it was a case of we'd have a transition period of 1 year to use all of the colors, but it's not. It's transition period is only for the colors that contain the blue 15 and the green 7. So it turns out, I read an article the other day, I couldn't find the link. I lost the link. But they said, I think in Germany, if you're caught using non-REACH regulation ink, you could face up to 2 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think everybody's kind of scrambling, everybody's stressing out, especially in the UK now, because they did do a consultation period in September to November, and they're going to release their findings at some point later on in the year. But everyone's stressing because there is no ink available at the moment. World Famous have obviously come out with their REACH regulation ink, but it's going to be another 2 to 3 weeks before it's even in Europe. So all people have at the moment is what they had last year, which is the non-REACH regulation ink. So in theory, it means nobody can tattoo.
Wow. So how strictly is this being regulated at this point? Since obviously regulators have to understand that this transition can't happen like with the snap of a finger. So theoretically, you could face up to 2 years in prison. Have you found that inspections?
I think that's just in Germany.
Just
in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from what I've read is, obviously, even though it's like a blanket regulation all over Europe, I think each country is going to implement their own kind of penalties, I suppose, for using it.
Yeah. What has your experience been so far? Have inspections increased, or in your whatever? I don't know what you guys have as far as annual or semi-annual inspections through health departments, or is that becoming part of what they're looking at already, or do you know?
So the REACH regulation and inspection stuff is a completely different thing. But in Wales, so you got Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland. In Wales, the government have worked with all the tattoo industry to come up with new regulations, which is a lot stricter, but they benefit us as an industry. So, for example, things like if you're not a registered tattoo artist and you are found with tattoo equipment in your house, you could basically get unlimited fines. So it was before, it would be like a cap at, say, like a $4,000 fine. Now it's unlimited. So they could slap a 20,000 or $100,000 fine on you. That'll be pounds. But yeah. So for Wales, when they introduced it, they were supposed to start it just as this pandemic hit, and they've obviously put it on the back bench. But the new regulations for as a tattoo artist in Wales, we're going to be, every studio has to be obviously registered. You have to have a health inspection. Every tattoo artist has to have a criminal background check. If they fail the criminal background check, so say, for example, I don't know what the exact charges are going to be. So if you've got a criminal conviction for like tattooing a minor or sexual assault or things like that, the possibility is you may not get granted a license. If you pass the criminal background check, you have to do an infection prevention and control course, which is a 2-day course. I know you have to do like bloodborne pathogen courses out in the States, don't you? But they're online.
They're online.
So in the yeah. So like obviously with that, somebody could basically do it
it's a
for
joke.
you. And yeah, well, in the UK, you have to go to a test center. You have to sit. It's either going to be like a 1 or 2-day course, and then a full-on exam at the end of it. Full exam conditions. You can't speak to anybody. You got to sit on your own. So that's just some of it. And if you fail that, you don't get a license, but you get to sit that as many times as you want. But you have to pay every time you sit it. I've done it. It's not that bad. If you're a competent tattoo artist and you know your stuff, you should be able to pass it relatively easily. There's a load of other stuff like that protect customers and protect the public. So things like I said, if you're a non-tattoo artist you cannot have any tattoo equipment in the house. If you're found to be tattooing outside of a registered studio and you're not licensed, then you'll get arrested, you get charged by the police, trade standards get involved and things like that. Even having private studios in the house, because obviously now people can have private studios. If you wanted to do that, it would have to be purpose built. You'd have to have your own separate bathroom, everything separate from the house. So you couldn't just have, like some people do, they just have a spare room set up as a studio and have it registered. You won't be able to do anything like that, which is all for public protection, really. And that stemmed from, especially in Wales, that stemmed from a couple of incidents that happened where tattoo studio, I think one tattoo studio caused about, must have been like 10 to 15 people to have infections because they were making their own grey wash with black ink and tap water. But they were mixing the bottles. Like, tap water is relatively safe in the UK. You know, you can swill your ink cap out. People use distilled water. People use tap water. Tap water is relatively safe. We're an aseptic practitioner. We're not like a sterile practitioner anyway. But what this guy was doing was he was actually mixing up grey wash
bottles.
And then, you know, you'd have that there for like a month. So people were getting infections there. And I think a body piercing studio was doing like buy one, get one free, except you both used the same needle. So it was like a couple of incidents like that happened, which has then kind of made it, they had a full consultation period, like loads of seminars with the tattoo artists and conferences. And that's what they've got now. So it's not relative to the ink. It's a completely separate thing, basically. I'm not sure what they're going to do in England. It's going to be different to England. We'll have I think.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my kind of next question. Is I wondered where this all kind of stemmed from. If there were if it was all theoretical, is kind of how this train started moving, or if there were actual incidents that that were large enough that led to that led to this regulation. Because it kind of seemed, from my vantage point, coming from the south, the southeast in the U.S., like it kind of came from nowhere. I didn't see any any stories leading up to to these stories of regulation.
With the ink.
With the inks, with the inks in particular,
So this is the thing. Like, I remember people talking about this like 10 years ago. You hear rumors in tattoo conventions, this gossip with supply company owners, and there was always this thing that they're going to be looking at tattoo inks. And the whole thing, I think it was like Mario Barth started that coalition for tattoo safety, which was meant to do something. And I feel like, and I've been quite vocal about this, I feel like he set that up, which was meant to stop this from happening. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like they buried their heads in the sand and hoping it wouldn't happen. And so it kind of seems like the coalition for tattoo safety is pretty pointless from my perspective. But I think people have known about it for a long time. Like, I was out in Canada speaking to the guys at Good Guys Supply. I was chatting to Rob Job. So I was chatting to Rob. And this must have been about 5 or 6 years ago. He even said then, he's like, mark my words, within the next 10 years, tattoo inks are going to be more expensive. They're going to be far more regulated, smaller bottles. And everything
Chris,
he said is coming on.
Dead on.
Yeah.
I have a question too. So we kind of have a grasp of what's going on, but for viewers watching, can you talk about rewind a little bit about the reclassification of tattooings and why that has such an issue and such an impact that you can't really turn back? Reclassification of tattooings as like a chemical regulated differently versus a cosmetic.
I don't know.
See, that's where I get confused, and I've heard so many different stories and reactions to this of the tattooing being regulated as a chemical, which would have to adhere to certain and completely different formulation, ingredients allowed, all sorts of stuff, labeling.
Yeah, but do you think that's because the tattoo industry has been left fairly unregulated for so long that they've just gone, we're just going to lump you in with the chemicals. I think
it was that's a huge question.
It's got to be scale too.
to,
I mean, like 10 years ago, there was only it's got to be scale too. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were only so many tattoos happening. Now it's like there's hundreds of millions of dollars of tattoos happening.
But then does it fall on the backs of the major ink brands and the major ink manufacturers that have had the opportunity and have known about this for over 10 years and not done anything about it? Because sorry, go on. No, go on.
I was just gonna say, I've definitely heard a fair amount of like, well, they'll figure it out, right? Like, the ink companies make a lot of money, they'll figure it. On the other hand, there's a lot of other people that are like, we're not going to be able to use our inks, and it seems like in Germany that might actually be the case.
Well, here's a question. If you say that, Jake, you're in a bind and I need to lend you $10,000, and so you've got it, and you know that you're not supposed to spend it, but you have it, but then you start spending it. You'll spend $1,000 on a Facebook ad, $1,000 on a video, and then you're left eventually with nothing. So if you talk about the time in which maybe manufacturers had this, but they're going to be instead, sending an artist around the world because it's good for their brand, or they're going to sponsor a tattoo convention, or they're going to put half of that or a large amount into marketing or whatever. I think that would be organization of funds with long-term results in mind, rather than focusing on such of the everyday things that really every single company that's really being successful is really pumping money into different places. But so maybe then budgets are a little bit more strapped when you're looking at a short timeline. And maybe why there's only one or two companies going through with it.
Do you think though that it's, I think it's more likely as well though that it's a case of, one of the brands has gone, oh, do you know what? They'll sort it out. And then the other brand is going, do you know what? They'll sort it out. And once they sort it out, we'll know what to do. So each brand is just kind of thinking or assuming that someone else is going to find the solution, and then they can just start doing it that way. Like, I think it's partly the financial side of things, and partly them thinking someone else is going to fix the problem.
Yeah. I mean, because one of my questions is like, ultimately, with after the end of these regulations, are there going to be like better quality inks? Is it like something, or is it inherently going to be less quality because they've already kind of evolved to be the the most longest lasting they can be?
This is the thing though. It's like the quality. I'm assuming the quality or the standards in which they're made are going to be better because they have to abide by certain regulations. But at the same time, what you're going to have is, so for example, like I seen Solid Ink put something on their Instagram where they said they're not going to make any changes, and a few other ink brands are doing the same. And there's like this little loophole now in Europe where you can sell tattoo ink but sell it as artist's paint, or sell it as drawing ink. So what people are likely going to do is they're going to just buy the REACH regulated inks, tip them all out in the sink, get the inks that they've used for years and they trust that are safe, or they assume that are safe, and obviously no one's had any long-term no one's died from tattooing. So
and they just want to give away the tricks to the regulators, though, right?
Yeah. So, but that's what has been told them. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, tattoos.
So, the problem. No, but so the problem that I think is going to happen there is, and I don't know if this is right in thinking, I would assume that because they're not selling it as a tattoo ink, it doesn't have to go under the same kind of testing that they do now, which is the CTL testing, which means if they're not going to be doing CTL testing, they can put whatever they want in this new drawing ink, and people are going to still think it's the same stuff. And with the CTL testing, over the years, there has been cases where certain brands have brought an ink out into Europe, they've done the random test, and then they've gone, oh, hang on, what you've got in the ink is not what's listed on the bottles. So they've already been doing it, which means that now the gates are open, they can do it even more because they're not going to have to, either do the CTL test or the REACH regulations or be compliant.
Unless there is an option that artists can trust, or unless the American manufacturers really pull through with those things, and the price increases aren't crazy, but there are some companies that are working to with the goal of producing a better product, and most people's mentality right now is like, oh, this is a substandard product that I'll probably be given access to because what I thought I was using was great. So, you know.
Yeah. I think people need to remember that the tattoo ink was safe until the European Union decided that it wasn't safe anymore. They've allowed us to use it. They've tested it and said it's okay. And have allowed us to use it until they decided that without fully testing all of the pigments, we're just going to blanket ban a load of them. Like, there's still no I think there's still no scientific evidence produced by, is it ECHA? I keep saying it wrong. I always say ECHA.
That's what we call it, ECHA.
However you want to say it, like they still haven't provided or come forward with any scientific evidence that proves that like the two main blue 15 green 7 inks are unsafe. There's no scientific backing. That's why we've got the extension, the 1 year extension.
That's it's really interesting. And back to talking about the quality of the inks, as you know, as regulations change them, the biggest question to me is where is the priority from the ink manufacturers at that point? Is it producing a safe ink that passes through the regulations at the expense of light fastness or longevity? Does that become something that you pay much less attention to? We end up with the same kind of oranges that we had in the last couple of decades, where all kinds of colors are disappearing, but that's not the priority at this point. The priority is being able to put ink on tattooers' shelves, you know? Yeah,
no, I know what you mean there. Like, I think it's a case of they're having to start from scratch. They're having to, and the light fastness is going to have to come later on down the line, because a lot of these companies probably have no idea which pigments are going to be safe to use. So, and they're going to have to get every single one of them tested, which is going to cost them a lot of money. But with the costing of the inks as well, I think, like, I understand and I appreciate that certain pigments certain colors, they are going to have to cost a little bit more. But I think some of the price hikes are going to be a bit extortionate. Like, just looking at the world famous price, the 25 euros for 1 ounce. And people forget that Cheyenne brought out remember Cheyenne brought out a bunch of inks a few years ago? They would have been REACH compliant. The entire range would have been REACH compliant. They said that they had an issue where the blue was coming back green after it had healed. But they would have all been REACH compliant, and I don't think they were selling them for an extortionate price. They were selling them for probably the same as what everyone else was selling them for.
Oh, wow.
So there's definitely going to be a bit of like, oh, let's just make a bit of extra money on this.
Yeah.
Like again, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you too about if artists are talking about this, how are your clients reacting in general, or European clients? How are they reacting to these regulations?
So I've actually asked my clients, and I've said, right, this is the situation the tattoo industry is in right now. You've got the REACH regulations that are coming into effect in Europe. Doesn't affect us in the UK, but it could. So what the European Union is saying is, these inks that you've been using for 40 plus years that no one's had any issues with, no one's died from, you've got to stop using them, and you've got to use these inks where there's little to no testing done on them, as in like long-term testing done on them. And I was kind of explaining that. I was like, what to my clients, I said, what would you rather I use? An ink that I know I've been using for years and they've been fine, or a brand new ink that I've no idea what the long-term effects are, that all I know that it's REACH compliant. And every single one of my customers has turned around and said that they'd rather use the ink that we've been using for like, forever.
Yeah,
so
I might propose that just argument, just like from the rules of debate wise, everyone's going to be like, of course I don't want to use anything that hasn't been tested long-term, and we can't come up like, and you can't test it long-term until it's been around for years and years inside of somebody's, skin. I mean, I don't know. I've got reactions. I got a lot of tattoos. There's definitely ones where the black, would get raised whenever the sun, came out bright.
Yeah,
I've had reactions from other things. Ultimately, just because I haven't like died. And now again, there's other things that people that obviously clearly do that'll kill them, that are okay. So I don't know. Again,
But I think
it's not like I haven't had any reactions on getting tattooed. There's been, I have no idea what's going on in some of my parts of my skin. Now that said, sorry, just to follow that up, after covering
no,
shit up
I know what
and
you're saying.
getting it lasered, I don't actually now have any tattoos that raise up. So it does change over time. But
I just think, like, I get what you're saying, and I know I agree. I get certain tattoos that raise up over time, but that's just because you have got a foreign body in your skin. Something that's not meant to be there is in there.
well,
But I don't think
but
it
possibly
causes
this
health
is
problems.
something that would fix that, right? I mean, maybe we can have an alternative that doesn't like so that line of reason, of course, it's true. But and so if we use that line of reason, then we might not look for the alternatives that would be that kind of color that wouldn't cause those reactions in 1 out of 1,000 people.
But then, like, I think some of the colors that people already use now would be REACH compliant as long as they change like a couple of ingredients. So I don't think it's going to be as bad as what people are worrying about, apart from the blue 15 and the green 7. Because, like, if we go back to the world famous, they've been the first to announce that they've saved the ink and brought out this full color set that has got blues in it, that has got greens in it. But unless they find an alternative to the, if they're using I think the CI number is 71460. That's the blue 15, I think. So if their blues have got that in there, and they haven't got an alternative by the end of this year, then they haven't saved the inks, because we're still without 2 of the main colors that we need.
Yeah.
Jake, there's some comments on your YouTube channel. I don't know if you want to.
Let's see. Well, maybe I'm not getting updated. I'm not seeing.
So Sean is in the room. Says the TPIU in England is also pretty useless. Then
the unions in the UK are absolutely shocking.
And then let's see, another comment from Sean is apparently the blue 15:3 was present in hair dye and banned from cosmetic use because the manufacturers failed to submit a safety dossier to ECHA. So now the same rules are applying to the tattoo inks. Dan Wilson says Eternal has a fully compliant line, but he's radiant bound. And then just followed up with, I'm still green, but you're all saying raisin happens or can happen well after the application. I've only seen it when the skin is overworked. So I guess from my personal experience, yeah, absolutely. I have tattoos where they healed up fine, and then say a year or two later that if I got out in the sun too much, not even too much, if I just got out in the sun, then like just the outlines would raise up with bubbles. There's definitely been so the answer to that is I mean, again, I did chalk it up to like whatever, I'm putting a bunch of shit in my skin, what the fuck. But that doesn't mean we have to do that. And if there was an alternative, I'd be happy to put like cleaner stuff.
But then it's the argument for freedom of choice, isn't it? I think it should, like, I think with the REACH regulations, I think it should be, they need to provide the scientific evidence,
sure,
and then give people the freedom to choose what they want. So, for example, like, I think if you look at blue 15, like the blue pigment, when you have laser removal done, it releases hydrogen cyanide into the body, and depending on how much laser you have done, it could depend on, I'm not sure the exact amount at each time, but it could be enough to cause cellular toxicity. So if they let people know about that, then they've got the choice then of like not to get laser removal if they have a tattoo that's got blue 15 in it, because having there's nothing that shows that having the pigment in your skin is going to cause any problems, because it doesn't migrate into the body as much as other things could. Whereas like if you laser it, it's going to migrate into the body. That's where it could cause health problems. So why aren't they regulating the laser removal industry heavily as well?
Yeah, they have doctors in the laser lobby.
Sure. Speaking of, that's a great question to know exactly what happens to tattoo ink. And I've referenced before, and if you've watched, John Swerk is a chemist in the United States working on that right now. And he does have, now that it's 2022, I believe 1 more year on the research project, which is analyzing all sorts of stuff with chemical grade equipment. And then I'm not sure when they'll publish the results, but I'm assuming late next year. Yep. Yep, and that's fantastic research. And some of the companies in the U.S. where all of the manufacturing is kind of predominantly headquartered here in the U.S., they have a lot of companies have come together in a guild of sorts to kind of communicate amongst each other. Not everyone, but there are groups like that where they're being super proactive, worrying about and focusing on what type of change could come to the United States that would maybe contradict or work in cohesion with the REACH regulations, which I don't foresee anything strict like that, as like previous regulation here has been written, but I'm just not sure.
I think like obviously that the guild is a great idea, but that's something that should have happened 10 years ago when it was first kind of discussed.
Sure.
Like I definitely I think it's maybe a little, it's too little too late, but it's good that they've done it, because I think if there's no, I don't know, this is just me guessing, like I think if they can't find an alternative to the Blue 15 and Green 7, the only next step the tattoo industry has is all of the ink manufacturers get together, all of the supply companies get together, and there's a class action lawsuit against the European Parliament or ECHA or the REACH against REACH for this regulation, because they've banned it without the scientific proof. They might have some sort of an angle to go at in the courts.
Sure.
Yeah. Is it true that both the blue and the green, the only scientific evidence that they brought forward has to do with laser removal and not with the ink living in the skin?
I don't even think they brought any. I don't think they brought any. Like I just found that online. I was looking for stuff for one of our videos, and I found online that when you have laser removal, the Blue 15, or when you laser Blue 15, it does release hydrogen cyanide in the body. But I don't think, because like I think on one of the videos on our channel, we actually put a little clip where the head chairperson in the European Parliament is kind of going, so there's no scientific evidence, and why is the burden of proof being put on the tattoo industry? Like, why are you not proving that this is safe or unsafe? Which is why they granted that extra year extension.
Yeah, so speaking about that, Chris, so what it was that they put together a huge form, and any artist, end user, vendor were welcome to fill out this paperwork. So whether or not you did may not be controversial, but they were asking really in-depth questions. Like they really wanted to know how much you're using, what brands, how often, how do you get it, all sorts of stuff.
We've just had that in the UK.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, but expecting the government to listen to, or like to make decisions based on science, I don't know I mean, there's been a lot of scientists that have been saying a lot of, pretty solid stuff for decades, and the governments don't seem to really give a shit. So like, I mean, ultimately it's about whose lobby is getting paid more, right? So, if the laser lobby's got the people and they're hooked up with the cosmetic ink, lobby or people or companies, that's kind of how the world is working, I suppose, as opposed to, and then that said, if you have scientific proof, it's like, look, here's the, to the SWORK study or to other real studies, this is, we're talking about, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of documented cases of this not causing issues. And then it becomes a court fight between the tattoo lobby, as you were saying. Everyone has to get together and pitch in the money to buy the people, and whoever is making the money off of the new lines of inks. I mean, I guess. So who is that? I mean, is there have there been any like cosmetic line, like real super serious corporate players, or is it so far just been a pain in the ass to the current tattoo ink manufacturers? I guess my question is, has anybody heard of any outside of the current tattoo ink manufacturers coming in to try to save the day or to try to take the money? I mean, so it's one of the paranoias about it. But
I don't think I have from the American standpoint. There's one that comes to mind, but
is it Edison Markers or something like that?
That's not what I was thinking.
I know there's a company in Germany called Edison. I'm really sketching this because somebody posted it in our comments on one of our videos. I think they are a marker pen manufacturer. They've set up a tattoo studio, and I think they're looking at bringing tattoo inks out. So that's going to be the first sign of an outside entity coming in and trying to coin in on tattooing.
But it's not like L'Oreal or somebody else who's like sitting there all ready to go. It's really just a thorn in the side of the current manufacturers to
let's just say hypothetically, right? Let's just say L'Oreal, right? They put the money in, they've done the research, they brought out inks that
And
are
most
better
importantly,
than,
paid off the right people.
yeah, but they brought out pigments that are better than everyone else. Then
Yep.
whose fault is that? It's not L'Oreal's fault. It's the ink manufacturer's fault that are already here and have been here for 20 odd years, 30 years, that have decided to not do it.
It is the market in action.
Mhm.
So I think it's going to come to a point now where we're literally going to have to use whichever's the safest. For me as a tattooist, I'm going to go with a company that is shown to be looking out for the interests of the tattoo industry, not lying in their pocket. So for example, like Intense, they're rumored at 39 euros per bottle. That's not confirmed 100%, but the rumors come from an extremely credible source. I can't say his name, otherwise he'll get fired. But 39 euros per bottle.
Wow.
And I think they've been turned down by a couple of supply companies because of the pricing.
Yeah, sure.
So
I
companies
think
like
that's
that,
going to be a really interesting because it's not only breaking your mind thinking, well, is this better or is it not, but it's also breaking your wallet. That's it.
Yeah.
That's right now. I know that they're listed. I'm not sure what the thing is, but like $12 a bottle, is that normal for, let's say, last year?
Yeah, 12
yeah,
to
like
16 or
14
so.
pounds.
So it went up a lot. That's a huge increase.
Yeah. That's over 300% probably increase. And yeah. I mean, we're lucky in the tattoo industry then that we've talked about it before, and that our materials and supplies are relatively a small compared to a lot of other industries. They're a small percentage of our revenues, but with leaps like that, I mean, there's just how in the world could a shop that's running 10, 15, 20 artists possibly adapt to that fast enough? Like that would be difficult.
Which is why I think the winner, I think the ultimate winner of this entire REACH regulation situation is going to be the company that comes out with the most affordable product, because people are just going to be like, well, they're all the same. They've all got to be compliant. They're all going to be safe. No one's realistically going to be better than the other, because you might have like the different consistencies. The viscosity might be different with one brand to the other, but they're all going to be safe.
Yeah.
So it's going to be right. Who's the most affordable?
Yeah.
If it's it's not going to be intense, but
either that or people just sock the customer with an extra 20, $10, $20 a tattoo.
yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Prices are going up anyway because of Brexit, because of you've got Brexit, you've got the pandemic, where boxes of, obviously our gloves are nowhere near as expensive as I've seen in the States. Some of the prices I've seen out there are insane. I think in the UK, some companies are selling them £12 a box now. So a box of 100, we're still paying like £6. So I don't know if that's expensive. We used to pay £3.50 a box of gloves. Yeah. We've been buying from the same company for like 20 years.
Yeah. That's been one of the most noticeable jumps in supplies that over the last couple of years since the pandemic that I've noticed. The gloves, the Opus, is it Opus? The gloves that I used to buy or still buy when I can, when they're available, have gone from somewhere in the $13 to $14 range up to around $26.
These are for 100.
For 100,
a box of 100.
Right. Yeah.
And
and they limit the number. You may only you used to buy by the case, and now you can only buy maybe 5 boxes at a time or something like that. Of course, people like me, I change gloves like I'm every 30 seconds. I'm always it gets expensive.
You always forget something. You have to take your gloves off and grab
right.
it. We're lucky; we can still buy them by the caseload. So like when we order about like 10 cases. But we don't get them. We don't get ours through a supply company. We get them direct from the glove manufacturer.
Yeah.
So we're good with that. But it's like supply companies were selling 2 boxes at a time. And even like now, I think one of my friends, he used to work for the NHS. So he's got a little bit of kind of he's got a couple of people that do the ordering for the NHS,
Mm.
and he knows now that the cost of gloves has come back down. But the supply companies in the tattoo industry aren't bringing their prices down.
Oh, really? Huh.
So I think
Well, there are probably some losses to make up for, right?
We're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got some comments in here. Curious 175 says, imagine they ban something and no one cares. I guess I was alluding to this, just, or, you know, like a lot of tattooers, you know, even if it becomes illegal, they will still tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
But then on the other hand, we've seen how awesome tattooing has become as it's opened up too, right? So it's like, of course, tattooers are still going to do it, and they're still going to use the best that they can. And to your point, Chris, there's a variety of methods that they've already used. It's already been underground, so it's like it's only been above.
It's going to go back underground.
Yeah.
Now that's
going to be like half in, half out.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's better or not. You know, like it was definitely fun when it was kind of underground, you know, but on the other hand, just seeing so many awesome artists that are just artists that are getting into this and using it is pretty amazing too. And, you know, so it's like you still need to be dedicated to tattooing, but you don't necessarily actually need to be an outlaw. And, I think it's good that you can be, that, you know, that it's not outlawed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I think that would be, it'd be sad. I think the growth of tattooing, or, you know, my clientele or the tattoo clientele these days, they're not interested in underground tattooing. It's so like we've grown in so many ways. You would hate to see it pull back. I think a lot of the great things that we've seen come from more educated artists, more educated clientele, you know, more art focused tattooing. And when you start to, you know, the more gray that things become, whether it's, you know, legally or from a safety standpoint or whatever, you that obviously costs on that, you know, in that respect. Most of my clientele would not be into me like skirting regulation, you know.
Yeah, I got a mixed clientele base. I think, I know, if I was in that position that they are in Europe, I tattoo everybody from, you know, a store worker to somebody to like, you know, the chief of police, for example. Like that's how broad our clientele is. We tattoo like doctors, litter pickers, we tattoo everybody. So we have some clients that would be like, yeah, don't worry about it. Others would be kind of quite anal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a broad amount of people that we would need to kind of like accommodate for. But at the same time as well, if you are if it goes on the route which I think it's going to go, where people are going to just buy the compliant inks, empty them out, and then put their old inks back in it, keep them locked away so they don't know anything, that they don't know that they're there, you're not going to be covered by liability insurance.
Yeah.
So if something does go wrong and it does turn out that they take your ink away, they test it and they go, oh, actually that's not REACH compliant ink, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
So it's sketchy area to be in.
It is, and it's the saddest part of it is if it's true that there really has been no scientific evidence that, you know, like Gabe, to your point, you know, we all have tattoos that maybe have blistered or something, and, you know, in the sun, or we've had small issues, nothing where people are losing their lives or anything about it. Those are things that, you know, that ink manufacturers should, you know, be able to address incrementally and slowly and test. But this, like with the lack of hard evidence, this kind of like clearing the entire, you know, table or clearing the entire industry and starting over just seems just not only an expensive waste of time, but like just so detrimental to everyone involved. It's just
one of the things that I can think of in terms of like accountability or traceability. We need to know where our product goes. So for example, if we were working with True Tattoo Supply, there would be a specific label, or Killer Ink or Barber DTS. We would write that on the label, and that way we can find out exactly where things went. So if there's no traceability from the vendor on, then it becomes a recall process or anything like that. If something were to happen, the proper notification process would be extremely difficult if you can't go to your shelf and check your batch lot ID. Not saying that would happen, but say there's a recall on a red in the United States that's not compliant with reach, that traceability is damn near impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that in Europe a lot, but with go back to the new tattoo regulations that are going to be coming in force in Wales, being able to track and trace where your products come from is one of the stipulations. So and that proves quite difficult. And that means everything. So like when you got companies selling needles that they're getting made in China, but not labeling that they're made in China and saying the factory that they made, we can't trace that. So they're gonna probably have to start doing that in the UK.
Okay.
So it'll be the same with the ink and everything. I welcome that. I'd love to be able to know exactly where my stuff comes from.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just for mostly for kind of reassurance, and then secondly to see if I can find the same product cheaper elsewhere, because a lot of stuff in tattooing is all made by the same company and just rebranded for other companies within the tattoo industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Chris, Neil Foster says, "What's up, mate?"
What's up, man?
Hey, Neil. Also, he's from Wisconsin too.
Oh, really? I know the name.
Cool.
He's on your channel. He's on that's on the Fireside.
I'm not getting updates for whatever reason. I tried to refresh, but I'm not getting updates on Fireside. I'm still seeing the like 3 messages from when we first started. So I'll depend on you to.
Here's another question for you, Chris. What is the norm for? What is the hub for questions to be answered? Where does everybody know to go? Aside from, is it Save the Pigments, or where's that resource? What are you guys looking towards, or who are you looking towards to find those answers?
For the ink regulation stuff, I always go to the Save the Pigment guys, and then I think some people started something called the European Council. So let me just check my phone. 2 seconds.
Okay.
There's a page called the European Tattoo Panel.
Okay.
So they've got some really good information on there. They've got a blog which has got like some cool info. So I usually go there, and then I get a lot of my information directly from people like yourself. Like, or I'll speak to like my contacts in World Famous, Eternal, and stuff like that, and find out if there's questions I can't find out from general kind of looking around on the internet. I'll just ask people directly, and sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people. Like one company, I'm not going to say who it is, have been skirting around and dodging our questions for like a year now. We've been trying to get an interview, and every single question we ask, because it's not in line with their narrative that they're putting out on social media, they're saying, they keep coming back saying, "Oh yeah, he's not available today. How about tomorrow?" And then tomorrow never comes. So yeah, I like to get my source, my information direct from the source if I can, but generally. Save the Pigments and the European Tattoo Panel, and some tattoo companies will post information up, but I think the best stuff for the REACH regulation and the most current and up-to-date information you can get is going to be from either the European Tattoo Panel or from the guys that Save the Pigments, because they're the ones that have they're the reason why we've got the 1-year extension. I think they started the petition, which they took to the European Union, and that's what got the extension of 1 year.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So maybe I don't know if now is the time, but before we close out, I'll give a little prep, Chris. If you could maybe close us out with like just the facts. I don't know if there is an easy, concise way just to be like, so right now, as of today, in the EU, it's like this. In Germany, it's like this. Or if it's really just
basic.
So fucked
up. That's what I could try.
Okay, well, it's not yet. Like when we're done.
Yeah, I could try.
Yeah.
I could try.
Cool.
I think we're up towards the end of our hour. Anyway, so yeah, whenever you guys are ready.
So maybe that'll be Brandon says, "Love the show. Hate regulations. Keep up the good work with the show."
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, I can remember, but as you guys were talking, I remembered this. This episode or a series that we did, a tattoo physics series that we did 2 or 3 years ago now on our channel. And I was talking to Sean Bellina of Spirit and S8, and we were first talking about, it was the first conversation that I ever had about regulation. And he did say that governments are paranoid kind of by design. And he came from a background in medicine, and he said, as the population continues to, the tattooed population continues to grow. He's like, you think about, someone who's brought into an emergency room with under cardiac arrest, and they have to crack their chest open, and they're, and they have full chest pieces. Like it's valuable for that surgeon to know, what's in that tattoo ink, and what might be an issue during an open heart surgery, from ink and skin. And he's like, so they'll always err on the side of being overly kind of paranoid, and over regulating. And he was talking about this several years ago. It's a really great episode. I wish I thought of it earlier. I would have tried to find it and pull it up. It's fairly short, but it was part of a tattoo physics thing that we did with S8 and Spirit. And I thought that was an interesting way to think of it. As the percentage of people that you're performing open heart surgeries on as the percentage of them with tattoos in the area that you're working on grows, I understand kind of the paranoia, I guess.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, no one likes regulation. I'll just be quick. No one likes regulation. Every once in a while, I do a convention somewhere, and they're like, no regulations. And I'm like, none? Like, shouldn't people at least know something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's not like there's, with the exception of some skin issues and stuff, it's not like people are dying left and right like they are smoking cigarettes or any of the many other things that could drinking themselves to death and ruining their family lives or any of that.
I think that one of the questions, though, that I'm still left with is why the rush? What's the rush to have this without some sort of grace period that is well known? I know that everyone says, well, this has been happening for more than a decade, but the real regulations that were brought to public attention really kind of surfaced within the last 2 years, 3 maybe. So and when I say why the rush, we're going to close out, but let's just think about this as we're watching. The CTL lab, along with the pandemic, they're not moving fast. There are companies in the United States that maybe could have had their product out already, but they're not. They can't. You have to have that CTL testing first. And they've submitted stuff early last year. No results, no communication. So it's making it very, very hard. In some cases, hands are tied. Many cases. Yeah.
Do you think someone's trying to sabotage the tattoo industry from a political level in Europe then?
I don't think so. I honestly think that it could be due to just how it is here with staff shortages, different type of operating hours, different type of operating styles, whether or not they have like any mandatory closures. It's just, that's what I would assume, but I could be also very wrong. But with the amount of time and the new amount of stuff that they're testing, it's probably, I don't know how long it'll take, so.
I did hear James Spader's kid had a tattoo infection. Maybe he's got it out for the tattoo world.
Maybe.
That was a Blacklist reference, everybody.
Well, all right.
Well, awesome.
I think it's time to close up. Chris, it was very cool to have you on and hear a
Yeah.
perspective.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Yeah, great to meet you. Yeah.
So Lauren,
before we close,
could you like spotlight them when you do this so that we'll get the real good YouTube clip that's like just the facts on the ink,
let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, the REACH regulations have come into effect now. And basically, if you're not using a REACH compliant ink, unless it's blue 15 and green 7, you cannot use it. It is now banned. Don't use it. And if you have any more queries about it, contact your local health regulatory people and see what they got to say. But there's not really much to say on this, is there, guys? It's just the ink is banned. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for taking the time. It was awesome.
No worries.
All right, everybody. And then lastly, I'll just close out Raw Pigments. We are very actively, and have been for a long time, working on this as well. And we'll have announcements coming soon.
Nice.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for watching.